The meta has shifted, titans have fallen, underdogs are rising, and somewhere in the middle, our factions are scrambling to survive. Today, we're diving into what it means to adapt when 40K turns the tables on you. I'm Brooke, joined as always by my co host Drew.
Hey, Brooke, it's good to be with you again. That was an epic intro.
It was not that epic. Anyway, let's get into the big picture and why change matters.
Yeah, I think, well, for me, we had some pretty good changes, but we'll get into that later. But I think one of the constants of this game, and if you've listened to our podcast in the past, it's one of the reasons why we like this game, is that GW is constantly changing the meta of this game. And for me, usually I would say that's a good thing, although I am an Orcs player, and before this Balance Dataslate, I was in a pretty bad spot. So, I was on like the probably the worst negative end of the psychological spectrum you can be on as far as adapting to change. I was not adapting to my meta at all. Like, I was in a pretty bad place, and I don't know how it was hard for me to get out of it. So other than getting this balanced data slate, so it's good to have change, especially when you end up in a bad spot like that. Maybe that's one of the good reasons why there's constant change, is that if you are in a bad spot, you can at least keep in the back of your mind that you're not going to be there forever.
Yeah, I think change is good for a game. It keeps it fresh, and it allows bad factions to go through a cycle of, okay, and then you can come up to be good, or you can come up to be great, or if a faction is really good, then that faction will cycle down to being average or good and not broken kind of thing. Like, for the health of the game, change is good. I would like, psychologically, like, shifting our mindsets for change to be a good thing can be kind of hard, especially when you're hit by a nerf. And I was hit by a nerf this data slate. We're talking about the data slate that came out Q3 of 2025. So we're kind of doing that. This is the context that we're using, talking about change in 40K in general, and change in games that we were playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like the most painful part of like a balanced data slate is if you had a favorite way to play your army, and somehow it ended up being popular in tournament play for whatever reason. So like, for example, with Orcs, I liked running the Dread Mob lately, and it wasn't the exact detachment that that broke Orcs. It was the Mordaka detachment, but we used a lot of similar shooty units, like the Big Mech with shock attack gun, and they nerfed all of that stuff, and they basically destroyed like all of my lists that I really liked with the Dread Mob, and my Dread Mob lists weren't that good, and it was just like put me in a bad spot mentally, where I was like, I have to like scrap all of my lists because of this Mordaka thing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is hard to get used to, especially if you're new to wargaming in general, we've played multiple games, and if you've listened to our podcast before, we played Star Wars Legion, and that was back in, I guess you would call that first edition of Star Wars Legion, and that game almost never changed. And coming into a game that changed, that was one of the positives, like you said. But having the mindset that when your army does get changed, in trying to adjust to that, especially when it's a nerf, is really hard. You get used to a play style or a list, or you have a pet list that you're really proud of, and then that list gets nerfed, and then you can't run that list anymore, and it can be really devastating to like your mental to the mental side of the game. But you still have to find ways to adjust, and this is our hobby, this is something that we enjoy, and we try to put a positive spin on that.
Yeah, and there's different ways you can go about doing it, just like the things that I considered doing last balanced data slate was like, I was just getting rid of my old lists, because like I would look at my old lists and go, I used to be able to run this. Like, this was a cool list. I really loved this list. And adjusting to the new reality it doesn't help looking at that old list and going, this is how things used to be. I used to be able to do this. Well, you can't anymore. And you almost need to just like, I don't know. It's like if you had like, it's your ex-girlfriend and you have her picture up all over the place. Take it down. Like, get rid of it. There's no point in looking at it anymore.
Take it off your screensaver on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Move on. It's gone. Maybe gone forever. You might not be able to run it again. Yeah.
Find the next thing, and have it, then put that picture on your phone,
Yeah. I think what hurts is like if you had a play style that you really, really loved doing and it feels like that play style just like, I get there's tournament metas and then there's just like your local meta, where your local meta isn't usually as competitive as a tournament play where you can run off meta stuff and still succeed and have fun. But it still hurts when you just like you feel like you're behind when the game starts because your meta is in such a bad place. Like if I wanted to run Dreadmop last Balance Dataslate, I just kind of like knew I was going to be either running units that weren't good or point efficient and stuff, and I just would have to run a perfect game basically to do well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Like, I mean, pre-Balanced Dataslate, I think I was eating good. Like, we had a whole Space Wolves Codex review recently that was all about my faction and how we were sitting pretty. And we really were. We had a lot of flexibility, and we had some definitely top-performing units in our lists, and they got hit in the nerf. And, my reaction was kind of poor to that, but I've moved forward and I've adjusted that, and I've kind of learned from that. And that's kind of one of the reasons we're doing this podcast, this episode on this. But, pre-data slate, I was sitting good. We had a lot of flexibility. We were playing around with our new codex, so everything was fresh and fun, So, with that all in mind, and I was excited about all my new stuff, and then I get hit with a nerf. It was kind of like a gut punch. I was like, all my new stuff, like I'm not even done building all my stuff, I haven't even painted it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I already got punched with hit with a nerf, and I'm like, oh man, like that kind of took, it kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit. But I've learned to adjust from that. I think, things are, while things did get nerfed, I think that there's ways to adjust on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, and like for me, with where we were before, and this maybe can tie things back to like the larger hobby and stuff like that, is like it's hard to, if you're not in that place, you can just be like, well, just kind of deal with it type tell somebody that. But if you're not in that place, it's just like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good metaphor. It's just like, say you have a home on the beach and a hurricane floods your home completely, and then you just tell them, hey, you got beachfront property, and you're like, yeah, my house is gone. Like, you could tell me to be positive or whatever, but my house got flooded by a hurricane and it sucks. So there's no amount of like, keep your chin up that'll make you feel good in it, but like there are things in, at least in Warhammer, that like, so with orcs, I couldn't run what I liked to run, but what was stronger, like because the points were very good, were things like Defcoptas, for example. Cult of Speed was really good. I mean, it wasn't really good, but it was
the best.
It was the best thing of orcs before this Balanced Dataslate. And like Defcoptas still, I think, are really point efficient. So yes, that was something I was working on over the last Balanced Dataslate, as I, had my Defcoptas sitting in a box, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to build these because they're good now. I will dust this box off, open it, and start building these models.
Yeah.
So that you got to just kind of like roll with the punches and be like, you do have to adapt and be like, all right, so this is good now. And I do like if you're collecting, you probably have the models of what's good now if you're collecting like one of each, unless you're like really going hard into one single detachment, which I think we kind of recommend going again. Don't do that necessarily.
It's an unhealthy practice to do something like that, I think, for
Unless
the
you
health of
really freaking
your.
love it and you don't care about like the winning
That's
aspect of
fair.
things.
Yeah, like if you're going into something because it's meta relevant, we are definitely against that. But like if you're going into it because you like the narrative of it, then yeah, like go
Go
for
for
it.
it.
And don't worry about this stuff. This is like this whole balance stuff. It'll just shift your list a little bit. You'll have to adjust a few things here and there, whether it's positive or negative. But like, yeah, like go for it. You're gonna play the things that you love anyway. You're gonna have fun regardless. It doesn't matter whether you have, this unit or that unit. I
Mm-hmm.
think you're still gonna enjoy it.
Yep. And if you're collecting, just like dust off that box of whatever that you've had sitting on the shelf that you're like, this isn't that good right now. I'm not going to build it right now. I'm not interested in playing it. Well, during the next 3 months, that might be one of your best units. So look at building it. Like, just look at it as a chance to clear out some of your backlog.
Yeah. Just trying to, I guess, kind of wrap up my situation beforehand, this data slate. Like, I felt like with my army, it felt like I had a lot of good combos. I had very efficient trading units, especially like Thunderwolf Cavalry, which we'll talk about. I like to run the big blob of 20 Blood Claws with Ragnar. I thought that was a lot of fun, and Ragnar makes Blood Claws really good. And, you know, I had a bunch of different lists that kind of had either Thunderwolf Cavalry or Ragnar and his big blob and things like that. And I enjoyed using those things. And it felt like they were very efficient for their points to trade into things. So I could rush my Thunderwolf Cavalry up and trade something out. And in my 3-man, I'd trade it with something else. And it's like, yeah, it's just 100 points of my list. And I traded out for, 150 points of their list. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm trading up on that. And that got a little bit harder with our nerf, but um, pre-nerf, basically, I felt like I had a lot of efficient trading units, and I basically, what ended up happening is I'm just gonna have to tighten my belt on a few things. I get my lists get a little bit thinner, with redundancy, or I can't take an extra leader or something like that, but it's not anything too drastic. I just got to tighten my belt a little bit and still kind of play my game plan that I'm used to.
Yeah, it's kind of like adapting your play style a little bit. You can't look at that unit anymore as just like a F it, press W, let's go. You
Right.
got to be a little more careful with them because they're just not as point efficient. Where you're just like, if I lose this unit, it's like it sucks, but it's not the end of the world.
So, like, for you, you had a lot of things that changed. So, like, are there things that you're excited for now, and anything that you're looking at for new units or combos that you're excited about to get on the table?
Well, first off, let me say when this Balance Dataslate came out, like we went from like the worst end of the spectrum. We were in the flooded house in the hurricane to
You're with the Imperial agents.
I was being inquisited for doing inquisitorial things, and then I'm now like this because enough of that guy screaming. I honestly like I really like my Gaz, and I don't play him enough because I don't really like running Mega Knobs that much, and every time I run him I'm like add 2 Mega Knobs or 3 Mega, like however many Mega Knobs I want to run with him, add this many Mega Knobs. And there was never any list creativity, and you're like, add Battle Wagon without hard case so I can fit Gaz's fat ass in the Battle Wagon. So for me, this should I just bring up the data slate? We
Yeah,
can
we
like
can go
look
into
at
it.
some of the changes.
Yeah, yeah, let's go through our changes, and then later we can talk about kind of like our takeaways and lessons and all that.
Yeah, so like orcs were in a pretty bad spot. Let me see. Do I have the points too? I
I mean,
do.
I can tell you what the. Oh, you got the points. Okay.
I was prepared.
Nice.
So like
Excellent.
we have some points drops. We don't have a ton of points drops. So just going through some of the, I'll just go through like most of them. There weren't that many. So like the Beast Boss and on Squigosaur and Mazrog went down in points, which I think is really good because nobody was really playing them. I still don't think people will be playing them that much just because Index Mazrog was so good. He's just not as good anymore. It's depressing. 145 points. Maybe you'll look at him. I still think he needs to come down. But that's not the big thing. We got like Big Mech with the shock attack gun went down 5 points. So the point change that we got from the Mordaka got reversed a bit, which is nice. Same with the 10-man Ludas. That went down 15 points. Our 10-man Ludas were 115 versus a 5-man was 50 points. I personally, let me say, the asymmetric points for the size of the units, hate it. I absolutely hate it. If anybody has it and you hate it, leave a comment and tell us what units it's very painful on. It's just stupid. It's dumb to dictate the way that somebody builds a list. Like, it should be your choice whether you want MSU or like the full size unit. Don't make me lean into one choice or another because the points hurt if I want to take the large unit. Flash gets.
I like it.
Go ahead.
I like it in some cases, but I agree mostly. We'll get to my changes and I'll tell you why.
Flash gets same thing. They were 170 points for 10, 80 points for 5. They went to just being 160 points for 10. Good change. Boss Snickrot, he went down 20 points to 75, which is amazing because he is our lieutenant, Phobos lieutenant or whatever you have.
Right. Yeah, lieutenant with combi weapon.
Yeah, he is our equivalent of that. He's really not that good for anything other than infiltrating and doing like secondaries and standing on like your expansion objective. That's all he's good for. He shouldn't have been 95 points, but he was.
He can lead your commandos though, and speaking of commandos,
he's still not going to lead at 75 points. He's running solo
probably not.
all day. Meganobs went down in points. Great if you run Bully Boys. I'm happy for you if you're doing that. War Boss and Mega Armor went down 10 points. He's 80 points, which is another great change because he is one of our solo skirmishing units that we used to run, and we stopped running him because he was 90 points, and you would always pay for, like if you're running him in Warhorde, you are going to pay for the Super Cyborg body, which is 15 points. So 105 points for a solo skirmishing unit. Not worth it. 95 points.
What'd that enhancement do for him?
Gives him a 4-up. Feel no pain. Yeah. So he's just like super tanky. He becomes a super tanky, annoying unit that can just like tarp hit things. War Bikers went down 5 points for 3, 10 points for 6, which doesn't sound like you're like, that's a sucky change, or like it's not that great, but they are equivalent pointage now with your Storm Boys, which I really like that flexibility that when a lot of times when you're building a list, you might have like 70 points left over and you were always going, well, I guess War Bikes were 70 points. We'll say you had 65 points left over. You go, I'm going to run, frick it, I'm going to run Storm Boys. Yeah, now you can run War Bikers instead. So it's nice to have that. Because like I think there were even 75 points at one time in this edition. They were just always overcosted, I think. I don't think War Bikers, when I've run them, they suck. They're like, honestly, they're like less useful Storm Boys, I think. But at 65 points,
think I've ever faced them against you, have I?
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever faced them.
I'm running them right now. I'm running them right now against my wife. That's where I'm using them.
Whoa, hey, bringing the wife in.
Just blowing them up. But Yeah, I really like that change. So our points, we went down. We didn't have anything that went up, and they didn't go overboard where they're like making units that could quickly become problematic less points. I don't like trucks at 70 points personally. Like if trucks go any higher, it's like why? Why are trucks worth that many points other than we use them? What else are we going to use? Anyways, good points changes, I think. Nothing groundbreaking and nothing game breaking.
Do we want to talk about my points changes
No,
next,
no,
or do you
no.
want to talk about your errata?
Let's keep going through orcs while we're here.
All right.
So the next thing is we got our balance data slate, and we have several really cool changes, and I'm just going to highlight a few here. So the first one is Gaz got completely overworked. Part of his changes were done to the battle wagon, and they're just Gaz changes, really. So first off, let's talk about the battle wagon change. Gaz model now takes up the space of 4 models in the battle wagon, and Makari would take up one of those spaces. Before, he took up 15 spaces, and Makari took up 1 space. So 16 of your 22 spaces were dedicated to Gaz before, which meant that if you wanted to run a battle wagon to carry Gaz, you always had to take off the hard case, which takes you from T12 to T10. That's painful on something that you want to be. You really want it to be T12 to be like, it's like a Land Raider. It's the Orc Land
Push
Raider.
It forward.
Mm-hmm.
Expect the armor to keep it alive for a little bit longer.
Exactly. And like you can't just go, I'm gonna just shoot at it with this rum-dum thing. You gotta like dedicate some stuff into it to take it out.
Yeah.
So you really want that hard case. So now you can do it if you want to take Gaz. You could take Gaz, Makari, and a bodyguard unit. We'll get into that in a minute. And they'll fit in the battle wagon together with the hard case on, which is awesome. So speaking of leading, now Gaz can lead different units. Before he could only lead mega knobs. Now he can lead boys, and he can lead knobs. And because of the Breaker Boys wording, he can also lead Breaker Boys.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm. Anything that can lead boys or knobs, I think, can lead Breaker Boys. So Gaz could lead Breaker Boys if he wanted to. It's not like the best synergy between them, but the cool thing is you could put Gaz with 20 boys, and then you get that second leader because of the ruling on boys, where if there's 20 boys in a unit, you get to choose a second leader. And that opens up so many possibilities to us with list building, where you can be like, oh, I could put a big mech with Gaz, and he can teleport through enemy units. I can also put, enhancements on that second leader from my detachment, and possibly like in Warhorde, I can make him move plus 2 inches, or I can give him fallback, shoot, and charge, or I can give him stealth with like Smoky Gubbins or whatever the hell it's called from Dread Mob. Like there's some really cool stuff you can do with it. With the boys unit, you got to run 20 boys. So if you don't have 20 boys, you're going to need to paint up some of your boys.
Paint up them boys.
Knobs.
You probably have a bunch of boys if you're in orcs.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I know there's some people who don't have like a bunch of boys. They might just run 10 for having that one sticky unit, but like now this incentivizes you to run 20 because there's some really cool things. Like you could run a weird boy with the Gaz and the boys, and you could do the jump, turn 1 and have Gaz right in your opponent's face. I don't advise it, but it'd be fun. So really cool change. The other massive change is our commandos got changed to have a new rule, the patrol squad section, which states at the start of the declare battle formation step, this unit can be split into 2 units, each containing 5 models, which is amazing because now you're paying 120 points for a 10-man unit, and you're just like, that's a lot of points for something that's just I'm infiltrating and dying with. that was their only real use to me, was infiltrating and
Objectives.
objectives. So to pay in your mind, you're like, I'm paying 60 points per 5-man model or unit. It's just like so much easier to digest than that 120 point cost.
Every list now starts with a commandos unit. So you literally, I think every list now is only, this is the nerf to you. There's only 1880 points now in your lists. Because this is auto stapled into your list.
Honestly, like commandos and boss Snickrot are auto staples, because like 120 points for 2 5-man units and then 75 points for boss Snickrot. So I have like 3 infiltrators for not that many points, 195 points.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's really good.
But
it gives you a lot of ability on objectives without having to sacrifice more than, I mean, you basically get a free unit for the price of the 2 that you would have in the previous data slate.
And here's the thing with orcs being a horde army, unless you're playing like Bully Boys, we want to be on the objectives early and often at the beginning of the game. And having those units that can infiltrate, they can screen out scouts and other infiltrators, and they can ensure that your army doesn't get stuck in deployment. So great for orcs. Yeah,
it's really good.
So this is like, to me, it's not breaking, but it makes us way more competitive, where you can't just go, I have one solution and I only need one solution to beat an orcs army. And it gives us tools to react to our opponents, because before we could react, but we just couldn't do it efficiently. And orcs get quality through quantity. So the fact that I get 2 commandos units for 60 points apiece, great. We got some other nice changes. I like the change to the Def Dread, where instead of the piston-driven brutality causing battle shock, it's basically like a Brutalis, where when you end a charge move, it does...
we only speak in Space Marine terms, so we all appreciate the Brutalis reference.
You're lucky that me, as an orc player, I know it.
We only, the spoken language of this podcast is Space Marine, so...
I like it because I like dread mobs, and I usually run like 1 Def Dread, so my Def Dread feels a lot cooler, like a lot more thematic. I want to charge them in now, so I can do those mortals.
This feels like the thing he should have done before.
Yeah. Why did he do Battle Shock? Ooh, scare you.
Wow, I'm scared, and now I'm gonna kill you. It's like...
Yeah. And then Killicans, their, fail shooty power trip does D3 mortal wounds instead of D6, which is nice. The fact that I can't just like blow up a Killican like the first time I shoot is kind of nice if I want to use shooty power trip.
It used to do D6?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Remember when we played King of the Colosseum and I shot and one of my Killicans literally blew up first
evaporated?
Shot? Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, so that's nice that it's not so punishing. And like, this is one of the... I don't want to talk about problems with 10th edition. I don't want to be a negative Nelly. Let's not talk about
there are 0 problems with 10th edition. I don't know what you're talking about. Moving on. Let's move on to Space Marines.
All right.
Space Marines.
All right, let me find them. All right, I'm on the Space Marines. Quickly. You want me to do points for Space Wolves first?
We'll do Space Marine points and then Space Wolves points. They're right next to each other.
All right, I'm looking at Space Marine points.
So I'm going to go through the things that matter. And the things that matter to me in particular are the Ballistus Dreadnought getting nerfed with the points. It's not nerfed in like how it plays, but the 150 points makes a lot less efficient.
Were you ever running a Ballistus though?
Well, I was about to. I actually bought an extra Ballistus to run too, and then they did this, and I was like, well,
now I'm running one.
I'll have an extra. Yeah.
So, you duped me, GW.
Yeah. Dang it. That's my lesson. Don't chase meta.
Yeah.
So that kind of stinks. It's still fine. It's still good efficiency. If you take two of them for 300 points, that's still gonna be it's still gonna be really good. Honestly,
Mhm.
not as efficient, but it's still gonna be good. The blade guard going up from 80 to 170. Okay, this one I don't like it that much.
Where's that one at?
However,
Oh, I see it. Never mind.
the blade guard, yeah, it's like right underneath it. I don't love it, and here's my reasoning. I think blade guard you run in sixes, uh, primarily because the 3-man is not tough enough or durable enough to be like a good bodyguard, and the things that they bodyguard aren't like world changing units in my opinion. Like you can get like a captain and he can walk up to somebody and do finest hour and get a crap load of attacks and get dev wounds and oh yeah, you did that, right? Or you got like a judiciar, but you usually run him with a larger unit so that they can all fight first, right? You want to fight first with a larger unit. So in the Blade Guard case, I don't love it. I don't love that it's an 80 to 170, so it punishes you for taking the full.
Mhm.
I really like Blade Guard. Maybe I'm biased, but I think that one kind of hurts. I don't like the nerf to the 6. I
Uh,
get it so that people aren't
yeah.
spamming it, but
I don't like I don't like nerfs to the full size units at all in anything. It's just kind of
yeah,
like I don't know. They're
there
they
we'll
are
we'll
really
get to
good. Like
we'll
six man's kill better, right?
yes, a way better. And like they just based on weight of dice, you get 4 attacks each. They're strength 5 weapons. They're I think they do 2 damage apiece. It's AP minus 1 or 2, and then 2 damage apiece. And they are very efficient in melee when you get the full 6 in. They quickly lose efficiency though as you lose models. Obviously, like you quickly like get underneath like the threshold that you need to kill a unit that you're running into, or a unit that's running into you if you have a Judiciar.
I still
Um,
feel like they're really good at 3 though. Like if I ran an 85 point boys unit into them, I think that boys unit loses.
I think I think you have to change the way you use them. As a 6-man, they kind of act like a little Death Star unit. They can go and skirmish with literally anything on the board. And instead, you can use them as a little 3-man that can play objectives, help to basically transport a character to where you need them to be, or it's a smaller trading unit. Like you put it behind a wall that's next to an objective, and your opponent puts a scout squad on it or a commando squad on it, and then you run out your 80-point 3-man blade guard to go and clean them up, which they
Yeah.
will. It's a 5-man. The 3-man will probably clean them up, and then you only give your opponent an 80-point unit to kill on the objective, as opposed to I have a 6-man that's 160 points. Like you have to change your mindset on how you use them a little bit. Like you trade with them differently.
You know, thinking about them as MSU units, they might be really good to run as MSU. Like
It could be.
they would be really annoying because like for me as an orc player, if I saw your blade guards, I would probably be sorry. I would probably be tempted to run like a 5-man knobs unit into them rather than a 10-man boys unit into them because I don't think my boys would be able to take out 3 blade guard vets.
Yeah, probably not. Well, they might. I mean, we would save on 4s, right? And then it would just be mostly up to the dice at that point,
Yeah.
and whether you're in a law. Um,
I guess knobs it might not matter because my AP is gonna not matter.
it wouldn't matter. Yeah,
Hmm.
you probably just want more dice.
I gotta do math hammer on that.
But I think you have to treat them differently. And if I'm running them as a 3-man, I already have a better unit to run as a 3-man in my Space Wolves Codex called Head Takers. They are better as the 3-man unit, just straight up.
Yeah, they're not about guarding; they're about taking heads.
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing that matters is the Land Raider. So the normal Land Raider, which has the las cannons, is now the same price as the one that has the Hurricane Bolters, which is the one that I typically have been running. But now I can run a Land Raider, a normal Land Raider with the las cannons instead. So it basically, I love this change. It decreasing those to be the same price, because I now have a choice to make where the Land Raider I think it can transport 14 models or 12 models, and I think it's 12 models. Maybe it's 14. I'll have to look it up. Anyways, it can transport a little bit less than the Crusader can, is what I'm trying to say.
Shoots
And
a
if
bit
I want
harder.
to what's that?
Does it shoot harder?
The Land Raider, the normal one does, because it has the las cannons. It turns into an anti-tank tank. Like, it
Oh,
is an
okay.
actual tank, as opposed to the Crusader. It does a lot of anti-infantry with all of its shots from the Hurricane bolters. Like, they serve two different roles. The Crusader's faster, and it has a ton of shots, and it can transport a little bit more. Or the normal Land Raider, which is 2 inches slower, and it can transport a little bit less. But the plus side is you get these humongous las cannons, right? There's now a choice there that I have to make when I'm building my list, and I like that. So I love this change. I think it's great. Going down to the next page, the Redemptor Dreadnought coming down 15 is notable because that has always been overpriced in my opinion, and now it's something that I'm willing to try because it was 210 before, which is crazy for a Dreadnought in my opinion. But now at 195, it's actually pretty competitive because it has ways to reduce damage to it. It does it reduces damage by 1 that is attacking it. Makes it super durable. It saves on 2s. It's T10, and then you reduce damage by 1. Yeah, it's pretty strong. Like it's got like a plasma cannon thing. I forget what it's called exactly, but it's like a good anti-elite, kind of generalist profile. You can kind of push it up the board and say, try to kill this because I have a lot of health and I'm very tough and I can reduce your damage. So like something that you shoot that's like damage 3 is now damage 2, but on something that's like a las cannon that's doing d6 damage, it doesn't do a ton against that, but you can maybe rely on your toughness and your save. I think that's a great change. I think the Redemptor Dreadnought now is interesting. We'll skip Gilliman because I don't care. I'm a Space Wolves player.
Space
Go to the Space
Wolves.
Wolves. So Arjack going from 95 to 105. I understand because he was in like every competitive list. They were running him with a 10-man blob of Terminators and saying, deal with him. He has fight on death. Like, if you get in melee with him, he's going to fight you back, probably with a lot of stuff. No matter what you kill, because he's got the fight on death. He's got precision with an I think it's anti-monster, anti-vehicle. Maybe it's anti-character. Anyway, but like he can take out characters really easily. If he gets in melee with them, especially, he has 5 attacks with a really strong hammer. His like Thor hammer. I'm looking up his profile right now as we're talking.
Can't deny his attacks basically if he gets stuck in.
Right. Yeah, his melee weapon is 5 attacks, 2 up, strength 8, AP -2, 3 damage. It's anti-monster, anti-vehicle, 3 up with precision.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, he's a monster if he gets into melee with you. Very efficient at like killing things, especially vehicles. So people are running him. I get it. Like he's very strong. Feels a little bit bad, but like I think 105 is pushing it for a character. Especially when you look down further and you see Logan is 110 and he's like the chapter master, right? Like he's a really big deal and he's a really good model for 110 points, and then he's 105 points and you're like, like he's good, but I don't know if he's Logan good. I don't know, in my opinion at least.
I just don't think Logan is. He's good, but he's not that good. You know what I mean?
I've never used him correctly, I don't think.
I don't like his data sheet's not the greatest.
His Vect is supposedly amazing, and I just have never taken advantage of that correctly. Vect, if you're listening and you don't know what that means, basically anybody within 12 inches of him, he increases CP on stratagems by 1. So if you're using a strat like an Overwatch, which is a 1 CP, and he's near you, then now that costs 2 CP. So for those reasons, he's excellent. Like he's so good, and he's got a ton of attacks because he's got his axe that he can do a sweep profile on, or he can do his like strike profile on, and he's got the wolves as extra attacks. So he's got like 1 billion attacks, and you can drop him in and say, "Oh, you want to do some strats? Too bad." Deal with his Terminator body. He's got 8 wounds, by the way.
Yeah. Still, like in trading or whatever, he might not be like he's a very good utility unit.
Yeah, that's where his power is. His power is in utility.
Yeah.
Our Jack is a problem. He is a problem in the fact that you put him in your opponent's try to get him into your opponent's face safely. And if you do, he is the biggest tar pit in the world. Because the Wolfguard Terminators give the -1 to wound rolls if your if your weapon's attack has higher strength than their toughness, then it subtracts 1 from the wound roll, so it makes them even harder to wound. So yeah, he's like the worst tar pit you can get into if he gets into your lines. That's a big if. So we're getting to the Blood Claws, which they increased the 20-man by 15 points, which really sucks in my opinion. This one hurts. I loved my 20-man. Because it's like the only Space Marine. It's like one of the only Space Marine units they can run as a 20-man. Because you just don't get like a horde unit like that in Space Marines. But I loved it. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm gonna run it as a 20-man. But now I'm cursed with an extra 15 points of tax because I want to run them as a 20-man. And yeah, I get it. It's a Space Marine body. They got 2 wounds each, and if you run them with Ragnar, they re-rolling every damage roll and they're advancing and charging across the board. They have movement 7. Like, yeah, they're really good, but like you're forcing me to now run them as a 10-man. So that sucks. I don't like that. I wish I had the choice in Blood Claws because they're infantry. I'm finding that I don't like infantry splits in particular. Like the infantry where it's the lower quantity versus the higher quantity version of the unit, and they make those two disjointed point costs. Yeah, I don't like those too much, which takes us down to we'll talk about Ragnar very briefly. Ragnar, he's really good. I was sad that his points went up, but he's really good. So I get it. But we'll go to the Thunderwolf Cavalry. This one, it was disjointed.
They brought symmetry.
I liked it.
Balance.
I thought it was great because I liked having. I liked the incentive it gave us as Space Wolves players because one of the biggest complaints about Space Wolves was the Wolf Jail list, which was 3 6-man or 2 6-man and a 3-man of the Thunderwolf Cavalry, and back then we had the leaders, and you'd rush these super units forward and you would lock your opponent in their deployment zone. Well, the incentive here that they gave us in our Codex release was they were 100 points for the 3. And then it was 220 for the 6. And I liked the incentive it gave us to run a 3-man skirmishing unit, not a 3-man wolf jail, I'm going to put you in hell unit. I am now incentivized to run a 3-man to fill a different role in my army as opposed to this really annoying, not super fun to fight against unit.
GW said, F this old model. We don't want to sell any more of this.
Like, we hate these models, so we're going to try to make it so you don't want to run them anymore.
Did you notice we didn't update these ones for a reason?
I will say they were our most efficient unit in the Codex. By far. Like, they were just so efficient. They're T6, they have 4 wounds, they have a ton of attacks. Like, they're really, really good. They're basically what you want a 3-man Blade Guard to be. It's like this or Head Takers. They're just really strong. So I get it. Like, the nerf doesn't take them out of playability. The nerf just makes us tighten our belts on our lists. And that kind of stinks. It's kind of a bad experience. I do wish that the 3-man was cheaper still, even if they did like a, plus 10, and it's like 5 points cheaper or whatever. Like, I wish it was still cheaper to incentivize that. But now, like, one of my first reactions when I was kind of being butthurt about my about my changes is I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to run 6-man Thunderwolf Cavalry now because that's what they want me to do, apparently. That was my gut reaction. But like, looking back on, these changes after it's been out for like a couple weeks now or whatever, it's like, yeah, they just wanted to take away your really efficient trading unit and make it less efficient. That's literally like it was an efficiency thing. Like they were just too efficient,
Mm-hmm.
and I get it, but it sucks because I enjoyed running them as a 100-man unit. So this is the one that I will say it made sense for them to be different points for the 3 versus 6, like per model. Most of the other ones I don't like. So yeah, that takes us through all the Space Wolves changes. The only other change that we had, which is a great change, this actually is it's a kind of a side grade slash. Well, it's not even a side grade. It's a buff. It's straight buff to Logan. He got you don't have to pull anything up for this, but he has a it's in our codex document.
It's
So
not
yeah, you're
in the
not gonna
data
find it.
slate.
Yeah, if you look at our data slate, it says none for our Balance Dataslate stuff.
Lies.
Liar. Logan basically when he does his ability High King of Fenris, where he says once per battle round in your movement phase, he can select one friendly Space Wolves unit that is in. It used to say strategic reserves, and now it just says reserves. So that includes any unit that comes up off the battlefield after the game has started. So like in Beast Slayer, you can put a unit that's within 9 inches of the side of the board, within 9 of the board edge, and use a strat to put that unit in reserves. And now he can actually tell that unit to come down on the first turn. So like if I go second and I put my Thunderwolf Cavalry on the side, and I don't want them to be there after your first turn, I could pop them up on my at the end of your turn, basically at the end of your fight phase. I can pop them up into my reserves, and then Logan can point at that unit and say, go down on the first turn during my movement phase. Like he can actually, so you can do a little bit more with those types of moves. The other one that you can do that with too is in Champions of Fenris. Champions of Fenris, you can actually get your Terminators to come off the board, and if you have like Wolfguard Terminators and you pop them off the board, then they can come back down immediately in your first turn. So it's pretty good. So yeah, that was kind of a buff for him. It makes that just more flexible and easier to use, basically. So, But that's it. That's all the changes for me. It mostly points. We got hit with points, and literally nothing else went down. Like we had no buffs to anything. I wish we would have gotten a buff to like Grey Hunters. Apparently, GW thinks they're perfect in every single way that they are, and they're 180 points for 10 models that basically don't do that much. So, I wish they were a little bit cheaper, but
Yeah.
so I can complain about that all day, but
So like for me, my biggest takeaway, like how I'm feeling about the change, and for me, it's like a positive adaptation for me, because now I have so much, and we've talked about this in previous episodes. I really like list building, and this to me opened up like an aspect of the game that isn't necessarily part of playing the game, and I just kind of do it in my free time where I'm building lists. It's a lot more fun for me to build lists. So like my feelings, I feel like I have way more flexibility in list building, even though we didn't get like sweeping points changes that allows me to take a lot more, but it makes me consider a lot new list archetypes because of the changes that have been made for like commandos, and the points that did go down on units give me really good tools to use and things to consider in the list when I have 100 points or whatever. I can consider like, let's take Boss Snickerat here. That would be great to have right now. Or I want that solo skirmishing unit. I'm going to take the War Boss in Mega Armor. It opens up a lot more for me. So for me, this is, I'm on the good end of things. Orcs are living high on the hog right now. So for me, I can't really give advice to people who are in a bad state right now. So like, how are you adapting, Brooke? How do you feel about everything?
I'm better than I'm a lot better now than I was at the initial onset of this Balance Dataslate. I would just say like word of advice for people who do get hit with a nerf, and my nerf wasn't that drastic. Like I was upset about the Thunderwolf Cavalry mostly, and Arjak and Ragnar. Those three were honestly all the nerfs that we got, the Blood Claws too. So those all felt bad to me because those are things that I liked in my lists. Um, I understand that there's factions out there that got hit a lot harder in the nerf, and things that have gotten hit harder in the past. We'll use you as an example with Mordaka, right?
Yeah.
You got the freaking nerf hammer of God
I
that
got
came down on you.
a double nerf hammer. I got nerfed and
Yeah.
then nerfed again.
Yeah. So I get it that like my nerf wasn't very big, but I will say, so if you do get a nerf, um, I will say even no matter how bad it is, don't overreact right away. I think overreaction can put you in a bad mind, like headspace for the rest of the lifespan of this version of the data slate. It will put you in such a negative spot that you're like, I don't even want to play my faction. I don't even want to run Thunderwolf Cavalry anymore. I'm never going to run a 20-man Blood Claws ever again. Like if you let that dictate what you're going to bring to the table, even though you enjoy those things, it definitely can ruin your experience, and it can honestly it could affect the people that you're playing against. Like if you keep that in the back of your head and you play a game, I play a game and I'm like, well, I should have, if this was last edition, if this was before, I used to be able to, it's like, yeah, that can kind of rub everybody the wrong way, not just you who's feeling negative about your own army. So don't overreact. Play your army, play a few games, and do that before you declare your army is dead. Your army might be dead. It might literally be dead. Mordaka is effectively dead.
I mean,
because of
orcs were like just over 40%. Like we were at a pretty bad spot. Which,
yeah.
That's tournament play, but honestly, like when I was list building, I would never get a list where I got done building a list that I felt like really good about it, where I'm like, yeah, this would be good, because there was always so many compromises I had to make to be like, well, I can't put this in. And I'm just like, am I running a horde army or am I running like some elite army or something?
Named Space Marines.
Yeah. Why does everything have a 5-up frickin' save? I thought I'm an elite army now.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like even then, like for me after the balanced data slate, building the lists, all my lists had to come down. Basically, I had to readjust all my lists, and that doesn't feel good. Obviously, like taking things out, but I, I don't think I should, and I don't think anybody else that's listening to this should declare that their army is dead because they had to readjust their lists. That happens. It's the natural progression of any war game, that if your army is doing really good, or if you have units that are doing really good, those units will be brought back towards the median of all the units in the game. And that's normal. And you should expect it to go both ways. If things are going one way, then that I don't know what to tell you. Like that shouldn't happen. Frankly, it should not happen.
I mean, I think the key to really enjoy Warhammer 40K is to be like a fedora tipping hipster who runs really off meta lists that are not trash.
I mean,
right?
I will, I'll admit that I'm the kind of person who doesn't want to play the broken army because I don't think it does. I don't think I get to have any player expression or gratification if I win with that army. So like in a way, maybe I'm that fedora tipping loser who has to, run the fancy dancy army his own way.
Well, that's where I was at running Dread Mob. I was like, I like Dread Mob. That's pretty cool. Like I like the theme of it, and you can do pretty good with it. And then they came out with more DACA, which happened to use a lot of the same units I was using, and then they got nerfed to hell, and I was like, okay, that sucks.
Yeah, and I think probably another. So obviously, don't overreact. And I would say the other part of it too, if you get nerfed, I would, this doesn't go for tournament play. Tournament play is its own monster that we talk about a little bit, but it is kind of treated completely separate from this. It's on a different planet. You should I implore you to, and I'm doing this myself. Take it as a challenge to still play at the same level that you did before your nerf, to still do well, to perform well with your list, to build a different list. Maybe you have to build into something else and find the new thing that is good in your army. Those things can be just as fun as playing with the lists that you had before, in my experience. um, that is a challenge that I enjoy. That's why I don't like playing the broken armies. I want to play the army that has challenges that I have to overcome in list building or in my strategies on the table that let me, that open a path of victory or whatever, like that let my army perform well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it'll become clear when you start looking at points changes and what has remained the same, or maybe you had a few things that did get buffs. It becomes there. It will be a clear picture to you as far as like this unit might be good, and it might not be the exact playstyle that you did before, but like you have to learn that if you play this game, and there's a lot of people who have videos or YouTube channels with videos where
Or
there's
YouTube videos with channels.
yeah, they have all of those combinations, and they're very negative about Warhammer and GW, and we're not like GW cultists or something like that, but we've played a game that has absolutely no change and it sucks. So
It
like
was awful.
it sucks when you get nerfed because I've gotten some of the worst nerfs in the edition with orcs. It wasn't fun last
Yeah.
quarter. Was not fun as an orcs player. But like I would
Oh
still
man, how good does it feel now?
it feels
How good
great
does it
now.
feel?
You gotta yeah. I mean you gotta learn to adapt. You gotta accept the lows so you can get the highs. You want
Right.
to get that high. But anyways, um no, what I'm trying to say is like you just have to like roll with it because the other end of the spectrum is the game doesn't change at all, and whatever the day one imbalances are, the imbalances a year later. Like, do you really want your game to be that way? Like, stop
What
complaining about change all the time, people. Like, do you want a game that isn't supported well? That's what I hear a lot of people asking for all the time, and it drives the heck out of me.
if the game was kept at the state of every codex on their release, Eldar would still be on top, and it wouldn't even be close. Do you remember when 10th edition? This was even before we played, and we learned all this after we kind of got into this.
They're winning at like
But
70% clip.
yeah, there were over 70% winning rate in tournaments is so stupid. That is so insane. That doesn't even that is so beyond what Mordaka even touched. Like Mordaka had like one weekend that they were like, "Oh my god, 63%," but it was like then the
One
next weekend it was
weekend.
like then the next weekend it was like 53 and it was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, it's so broken." But like do you all remember Eldari were completely busted at the beginning of this edition,
And
and they had to
people
basically
were
they had to
crying
change how
for it.
dev wounds they had to change
Yeah.
how dev wounds worked, and but like
Good change though.
oh, it is a good change. I rant about this. It is kind of a rant about how the game is fixed. You know, there are so many ways that the game could be broken, and the game is continually brought into a semi-balanced state. And when you have a billion factions like Warhammer does, it's pretty hard to keep the balance perfect, across every single faction. There's going to be factions that stand out. There's going to be factions that are left behind. We are looking at you and we're praying over your corpse, Imperial agents. But we accept the ebb and flow of balance because it keeps the game exciting. And when I go to the table in my casual games, no matter what my data slate just did to me, I still feel like I have a chance in that game because I'm not showing up to a table and I look at across the table and there's that faction that has been broken for 3 years. And I know that I'm going to lose. There when we played, we I bring this up more than you do, but when we played Star Wars Legion, when we were playing it all the time in the heyday of our time in Legion, right? We were playing in the CIS meta. CIS was freaking broken. They were so good. They were winning in the high 60s% in tournaments. They were basically taking every single tournament, first, second, third. We played in the CIS meta, and I was playing Empire, which was the worst faction in the game, and then I ended up switching to Rebels too.
When Empire became the best.
Yeah, when Empire became the best, I switched to Rebels.
With their freaking their snow speeders, snow bikes.
Whatever yeah. I never did that. Yeah, they did the bike list. Anyways.
What was it called? The Hoth one.
It was the Hoth list, yeah. It was
man,
I don't remember.
I haven't played the game in a while.
Wow. I don't remember.
But can you imagine though, like a lot of people follow this game through like tournament play. Like I do that. Like I was watching the London GT stuff all last weekend, and on Monday I was watching the London GT. I like following that stuff. Can you imagine like having any interest in following this stuff if the meta didn't change on a regular basis? Like that Hoth list that was really good in the 1 year was really good the next year too. Would you really want to continue following the game if the meta never really changed, other than maybe one player somehow got lucky and discovered some off meta thing that becomes the new meta?
Yeah, my whole point of bringing up Legion, and I don't think I ever really completed my point, I guess. But
sorry.
No, you're good. We went on a tangent. And you kind of went back to it, honestly, with what you were talking about. Is over that year or whatever that we were playing, where it was the CIS meta, and then there was the Hoth list. There was like very specific lists that were just dominating.
And that Hoth list only came out because it was a new battle force that they detachment that they created for Star Wars Legion. Yeah, they're like, here's a new thing, and then it became the best.
Right, and the game didn't change for a full year, and the previous year in Q4, there was a Balance Dataslate equivalent. It came out and there was points changes and all that. And that came around and they didn't do anything to most of the entire game. And it went into the next year and it was the exact same meta, almost the exact same meta across the board. And we're like, what the heck? Because you were playing Republic, a faction that was really in a bad spot by almost all metrics. It was the worst faction by far, and they did almost nothing to it for like a full year and a half. And that's what I don't want to happen to 40K. I like the points changes they do it like every, is it quarter? I think they do they do
every
points every quarter, and they do balance every 6 months, right? Every 2 quarters. Well, I think.
Just imagine having a pet unit, like a pet character. You're like, I really love this character. I really want to use him in a list. If he comes down in points, baby, I'll be playing him all the time. Right. Like I wanted to really play Rex because I heard about the Rex the Rex Star back in the day, and I'm like, I want to enjoy Rex summon. We would there would be,
I would tell you stories about it.
There'd be people on Reddit, talking about, oh, what are they going to do to Rex in this rules change? They're going to do anything to Rex? Is his points going to come down? Are they going to change his command cards, which is like stratagems sort of? Are they going to change these things? And you're just like, oh, like speculating all this stuff. And then it comes out and they do like absolutely nothing.
They did literally nothing
to him. And you're just like, maybe next year, if they decide to update it next year, would you want to be in a game like that?
Yeah. And I don't think anybody wishes that upon themselves. Like, I don't think people who want, I've like you brought up some of the, we're kind of on a tangent of what like some of the people who react poorly to data slate changes, right? They're like, I wish the data slates didn't come out so often. It's like, well, would you rather they didn't come out? Because if they didn't come out, you'd be in a state like we were in with Star Wars Legion, where it didn't change and you had that pet unit that you're like, man, I wish I could run this. I wish I wish it was good enough for me to play, and then it never got updated and you just put it back on the shelf. And it's like, I'll play it next year, maybe. Because I have no idea if it's ever going to get touched. And literally until the end of that edition, Rex was never updated.
Mm-hmm.
I think he got a points cut maybe, and that was it. And he was still unplayable. It was still so bad. It was, it, I going back to the lessons on balanced data slate stuff, don't overreact. The negative side of things is a part of the game as well as the positive parts of it. It's an ebb and flow. I understand that I was eating good with my codex and I felt awesome. My codex was sweet, Um, at the beginning of the edition, I had the worst index detachment of literally everybody in the game, pretty much. We didn't have a rule until you accomplished sagas. It was so bad. But then they redid my index attachment and made it really fun. And I was eating good, right? I was very positive about that. And then, ebbs and flows over the points, and then my codex comes out and I'm feeling great, and then now, we took a hit. And that's fine. I'm willing to take the hit because I know that the game is they're trying their best to bring everything in balance. It hurts me now, but I'm here for the long run, and I'm not here to grind tournaments. So it doesn't affect my placement or now I need to buy a new army so I can compete in the try to be top tournament player or whatever. It's much more about, okay, I need to tighten my belt. And I'm still going to play Space Wolves in my casual meta, and I'm still going to have a good time, and I'm still going to have a chance to win. I'm still going to do well if I run my army correctly. I'm not. This didn't take me out of the game, and I'm still going to have fun. And I think that's probably a healthier outlook on a balanced data slate than to take the negatives and let it kind of dictate how you feel about the entire game for the next 3 months, for the next quarter, until they actually update the points again.
And the fact that this is a living, breathing game and not some stagnant dung heap, you can at least have the mindset that it sucks now. Like, acknowledge the past, that I had the Mordaka detachment that was really freaking good. And we had that for a while. And we can look back at that and smile. But we got nerfed, rightly so, because that was really good. And maybe they nerfed us extra hard. And your army could kind of be in a dead place right now. But, for me, it kind of felt that way, that orcs were not in a great spot and they were kind of dead. But there's other parts you can do. Like I was, if you like the painting and hobbying aspect part of collecting, you can lean into that a little bit more and just be like, I got some units sitting in my pile of shame. Let's start building those. Let's start working on those. That's kind of what I did during the last quarter of the game. And maybe if all you care about is playing the game, that really, really sucks. And I totally understand that. But you can at least look forward to the fact that you'll have this moment where Gaz gets this huge glow up, your commandos get a glow up, and it's just now we're really happy. This change is good and it feels good. So for you right now, it feels bad that you got these points nerfs, but at the same time, maybe next quarter, because it does look like Space Wolves at least are maybe below that 50% threshold, you're going to probably get some buffs in some other units, and you're just going to have new playstyles 3 months from now.
Yeah. I'm okay with my changes. I understand why they did them. It doesn't feel good in the moment, but I'll try to take it in stride. I'm going to try to practice what I preach and take it in stride and not be very negative about it, and still play my faction, still have fun. The one thing I wanted to also give advice on, like you were saying, that and I think this is great advice, is to work on a hobby project. You might switch gears and do that for a little bit. I'm going to give you a piece of advice that it doesn't apply to everybody, and some people might react poorly to this, but I'm still going to say it anyway because I think it is applicable to some parts of our audience. It might be an opportunity for you to try a different army. And you can do that in a couple ways. You could obviously buy the army, right? And that's expensive, and not everybody's gonna. The initial reaction is like, "Oh, I don't have the money." You think I have the money to buy another army? That's not necessarily what I'm saying. If you do, great. Collect another army, have a secondary army, and chances are that your secondary army and your primary army aren't going to both suck at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can play with your friend's army if they'll let you and say, hey, can we, can I play with your army today? Can I I want to try, Bill, friend of the podcast. Hey, Bill, can I play your Astra Militarum today? And he'd be like, yeah, sure. Like, because we're cool with that. Like we'd be cool with that. We trust each other with our models and stuff. Like, hey, I want to try, Bear, I want to try your salamanders. Can I try your salamanders today? Like, oh, yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's a way that you can do it without having to spend money, if you have a group that you play regularly with, or if you, go to a local game store and you're friendly with those people. I'm sure that some kind people in this community would be willing to let you try their army too.
Or another thing we talked about was doubles, because you could play a doubles game with a partner who doesn't have a dead army. If you are dead set on playing your army, which for me, like, I love orcs and I kind of want to play orcs all the time. It's hard for me to like think about collecting another army. But if I play doubles with somebody like Space Wolves, which were good last quarter, like, you can mask a lot of my deficiencies.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Doubles is a great outlet for this very scenario.
And it's just more casual anyways.
Yeah. The other one I would say too, trying other game modes. Doubles is one of them, but then if you look at King of the Colosseum, which is the play on mode that they made, and if you proxy some of your own terrain for that, which would be the cheapest option, that can be a fun way to play an army that you would otherwise think is bad. I played my I have Imperial Agents, which is funny because they're so freaking bad. But playing them in King of the Colosseum is actually super fun, and they're actually fine in King of the Colosseum. They, for reference, King of the Colosseum it limits your army to no epic heroes, and your toughness has to be below. It has to be T9 and lower. And it's 500 points, and you have to have 2 infantry, and that's basically it. So for agents who struggle to kill bigger things, limiting it to T9 is like a buff to them, and that makes them actually completely playable. Maybe that's not going to apply to every single army in the game, where it's like, oh, I'll just play it in the 500 point version. But trying other game modes like that, or you could do, combat patrol. I've heard that combat patrol isn't a totally balanced and fair game. However, it's not balanced the same way that 2000 points is. So you could play a different point value, and it might skew the balance. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a different game mode in general. You could just play at 1500 points, or you could play at 1200, 1250 points, instead, and see how your army performs in those scenarios, because the balance would be a little bit different. So just being like able to try different things, whether it's a new army or game mode, like those things will help you get out of a rut where you feel like your army is really bad, and maybe your army is bad, but you can still have fun in other ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think you really just have to try. Like, it's hard to tell somebody, like, stay positive. And sometimes it can be really hard when you got kicked in the nuts.
Stay positive.
Like Thousand Suns, for example. Like, you can't try your spells again if you fail. Just deal with it. Just roll with the punches. Like,
yeah,
they'll be like insulted you telling them that. But yeah, it sucks. Maybe, hopefully we've given you some advice to make it feel less painful. Like, don't panic, try it out first. Like, it sounds like, to me, that does sound pretty horrible, that if you have these spells that is like your crutch for your army, and now you only get one chance to do them, that really sucks. And that's going to be unfun for you every time you play a game and a spell does fail, because you're going to focus on that. And then every negative thing that happens in the game after that, you're going to be like, if that spell had succeeded in round 1, then you're going to focus on the negative things. It's just kind of like anything with sports, like, or gaming or anything like that. Like, as soon as one negative thing happens to you, it kind of
compounds.
Yeah, it snowballs, and you're just kind of like, oh, like, my life sucks right now, and this game sucks. I hate everything. And
Right.
it's totally understandable to be there. And everybody has to find like their own way to adapt to it. So I can't tell you do this. Brooke can't tell you to do this. You really have to find your own way to find enjoyment in the game. And if it does get to the point where you're just like, I need to take a break for the game during this quarter, that's perfectly fine too, because we are playing a living game and the game will change in now like 2.5 months from now.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, if all else fails, just take a break.
Yeah.
Because in the next quarter, in December, we're going to get another change. And, check it out then. And that might be the solution for you. But
Go
we
enjoy
try
the
to give
changing colors of fall.
Right. We try to give you some check out football season, go watch the sports ball. But like there are other things that you could be doing. This is a hobby, it's supposed to be fun. We don't want you to leave the hobby because we love this hobby. And we want you to come and hang out with us while we talk about the hobby. But, if you're really not enjoying it that much, take a break, and come back when you're ready to come back.
And like this is something that applies to more than just Warhammer. Things change, and sometimes for the worse, sometimes for the better, and you really just have to adapt to it and adjust to it. And everybody has their own way of doing it, and we've talked about some of our ways. And maybe one of you listening thinks like us, and you're like, that I'm going to do that. That's going to make this a lot easier for me to deal with. But maybe not. And you really have to find your own way to adapt to these types of changes.
Yeah, definitely. I I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. I think that feels right to me.
Yeah, and like with that, so if you're still listening, like leave a comment, tell us how you're adapting to the data slate. Did you get positive changes? Did you get buffs? Did you get nerfs? How are you dealing with them? And maybe you can give your 2 cents on what you're doing, and maybe that'll resonate with somebody in our audience, and we'll help each other out. We'll get through this balanced data slate together. For me, it's easier than for other people, but I've been there. We've all been there. I think everybody has been
Right.
there that plays this game. So
Tell us what faction you're playing in your comment too. If you do leave a comment, I'd like to hear what people are playing that are listening to us.
Yeah, definitely.
And I apologize that we didn't get to your faction in this, but we're not experts on all the factions. There's probably better sources for that, but I'd love to hear what you guys are playing.
Yep. All right. So, yeah, if you're still listening at this point, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and do all the YouTube algorithm stuff. And we appreciate you listening this long.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys later.
Later, guys.